Good afternoon, 12s. Welcome to Seahawks 360. I'm Candace Hagens,
And I'm Tino Ganasius.
and we are back to discuss an incredible win by your Seattle Seahawks. They are officially in the NFC Championship after absolutely whooping the San Francisco 49ers, sending them home crying per usual. Man, I'm excited to get into this game because this was just from beginning to end a bludgeoning, really. Like that just is no other way to put it. Rashid Shaheed had a kickoff return for a touchdown and just off with the races. Tino, you know, is our resident doubter. How are you feeling right now?
I'm doubting less. Let's put it that way. Uh, I feel great as a Hawks fan. That was, I don't know, when I'm rooting for my team, I want to see a blowout every time. I don't need the drama. Some people say I want to see a good game. I don't want to see a good game. I want to see the Seahawks. I want to see Michigan football. I want to see the Mariners. I want to see my teams blow out the other team. This reminded me of the LOB years. This game reminded me of that Super Bowl winning team, right? And the score isn't that far off from that. What was it, 43-8 game
Yep,
against the Broncos in the Super Bowl?
that's just what I was thinking.
Um, so yes, where I will start is, obviously I probably hate Darnold or hated Darnold more than anyone else did this entire way. What I will say is this is the formula that I said where I said the Seahawks could win the Super Bowl. What I doubted and still do to a certain extent is that Darnold can continue to not turn the ball over. This is two straight games for him in which he hasn't turned the ball over. So if you don't ask him to do anything, now the pass to Smith and Jigba in the end zone was a great pass, right? I will grant him
Right.
that. And you have to be very good to not make mistakes. But between the progression of this offensive line in the running game, right, getting to a place that we both said would help the Seahawks move forward and potentially get to the Super Bowl, and to have Darnold and the defense, obviously, we'll talk about that later, continue to do what it did.
Mhm.
But the fact that Sam Darnold did not turn the ball over, the fact that they only asked him to throw the ball 17 times, what's up, Sergeant? Um, that to me is the key. And I continue to say that is the key to this team in 2025-26 is that Sam Darnold takes care of the ball. Do not ask him to do something that's outside of his skill set and do not turn over the ball. Everything else will take care of itself. Now, where am I in terms of the Seahawks Super Bowl chances with Darnold? Say how I felt 6 weeks ago versus now. Do I think they can win? Absolutely, I do. I think they can win the Super Bowl with this team. I will eat crow. I think everything else has to be perfect. But I also think that the way that the brackets are breaking down with the Eagles gone, right? With now obviously they got through the Niners, but especially if the Bears win this game and it's not the Rams, I'm much more scared of the Rams and Stafford than I am of the Bears.
Right.
I respect Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson is proven to be a tremendous coach. Caleb Williams might have the best arm talent of any young quarterback in the NFL, but the Seahawks are just better. The Seahawks are a better team. And then for Bo Nix to go down with the Broncos will still have a chance. I know people are hating on Jared Stidham, but the Broncos will have a chance against either the Texans or now they'd have to win like 3-0 against the Texans, but either the Texans or the Patriots. I think the Broncos have a chance because they're built in a similar way to the Seahawks in that defense is utterly dominant, right? What is interesting is the Seahawks will likely go against a defense that will be similar to its own in the Texans or the Broncos. And so, again, the key is going to be Sam Darnold, whether it's the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. But I am here to celebrate an incredible game from K9, an incredible game from the defense, an incredible game from the O line. I would just wrote in my notes, sorry, and I'll stop after this, but I wrote in my notes that this O line was like our number one talking point since you and I started recording together.
Yeah.
We could not stop talking about Anthony Bradford, me talking about Abe Lucas, right? Talking about the center position and whether Olawatimi is actually a starting center. What are they going to do at left guard? Is Charles Cross actually decent or is he just a high pedigree first round pick? Now, we don't even talk about the offensive line, right? And I think that's the sign of a great offensive line is when you're not bringing them up anymore. That means they're doing their job. So, one other note, Kenneth Walker, 19 for 116, 6.1 average, 3 touchdowns. This is only the 18th time in
Oh,
NFL history that a running back has had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns in a postseason game. And I think he looked incredible. We will talk about him later today or later in the pod, but
mhm.
he looked absolutely incredible.
Yeah, this game was so dominant that it's hard to identify specific players to call out
Hmm.
because everyone across the board just did their job and played at peak performance. I would dare to say that the defense even leveled up
Hmm.
from what we saw in that last matchup, even though I understand that the 49ers got 6 points versus three the first time. I
Hmm.
just felt like their ability to turn the ball over, it seemed like at will, or to make key stops to
Yep.
get them to turn the ball over on downs was just relentless. And the more the game went on, I felt like early on there were some leaky yards here, leaky yards there, but
Hmm.
the more the game went on, the more fundamentally sound they became. Not to say that they started off not being fundamentally sound, but just they had a long drive to start those first two drives. I felt like the 49ers were able to have some success, the Kyle Shanahan scripted,
Hmm.
run. And granted, that that's what it was. And Kyle Shanahan deserves an immense amount of credit for what he's been able to do this year with virtually nothing
Right.
in terms of the injuries that they faced.
Right.
But once you got past that, there were no answers.
Mm-mm.
None.
Yeah, you get that feeling with this defense that they'll bend a little bit, but then they can take the ball away when, like you said, at will. I think like Demarcus Lawrence's ability to cause fumbles is incredible. That's intentional on his part, right?
It is.
He's playing like a MVP,
Mhm.
right? Or defensive player of the year. Like that's not what we expected when he was signed. We thought we were getting somebody who was, on the backside of his career, and we hope to get something from him. And we've seen the Seahawks sign those big names in the past and have them just not perform when they got here. He's probably been the best player on this defense the last 6, 8 games, at least from an explosive play standpoint.
I would
And
agree.
then Ernest Jones' pick was literally him just beating the receiver to the ball, right? And his instincts are incredible. I think you're right that this defense, you almost feel like when it's time to take the ball away, when they're tired of like playing cat and mouse and letting them get 3 yards here and 3 yards there, they just say, okay, we're gonna take the ball away now. Right? That's
Yeah.
almost how it feels. It was
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Because they just have this uncanny, and I do think, like you said, I do think to some extent it is intentional because they have those veterans on the
Mhm.
defense that know how to pick their spots. And I really think that's what we feel. It's just the veteran savvy of knowing when to pick their spots.
Yep.
Ernest Jones has been to the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
Uh Leo Williams has not been to the Super Bowl, but he's
He's a
been in the
vet.
game a long time. Demarcus
Mhm.
Lawrence has been playing at the elite level with the Cowboys for a long time, so he
Mhm.
knows his abilities and when he can go and when he can, especially once he sets you up for something, right? Like if he's been working towards something for a minute.
Right.
Um, and I just want to shout out Byron Murphy has been absolutely playing with his hair on fire. Just
Yep.
the way he attacks double teams and like he's unblockable at
Yep.
times. Like he as young as he is seems to almost have that veteran savvy that I just mentioned, and that he can kill a block whenever he wants to.
Right. Well,
Whenever he wants to.
his first step is incredible. To me, I know he was playing on the nose, a lot this year, but honestly, he's got that prototypical three technique explosiveness and his
Right.
ability to disrupt between he and Leonard Williams, their ability to get up field and disrupt and blow up a play is to have two of those guys who are elite at that in particular, on top of Lawrence and everything else. Yeah, this defense, I don't know how you score on this defense the way it's going right now. I will also say that Eamon Wari
Yeah.
is in my notes, it just said Eamon Wari was everywhere. That fool was everywhere.
Yeah.
And that is a wild card that I think this defense kind of needed,
Hmm.
right? It's not, and not that the defense wasn't great before that,
Right.
but when you have, I think that his presence is allowing for the rest of the secondary to play a little more loose. You remember they were kind of other teams last year would kind of zero in on Witherspoon and know they'd have to know where he is and focus on him. And I think that he got washed away a little bit because
Mhm.
the offense is focused on making sure that they were aware of where he was so much. But with Eamon Worry now and his explosiveness, now you got two guys. It's like having two queens on a chessboard. You
Yes.
got two guys that you have to be aware of on top of everybody else. So yeah, this defense. So Purdy ran 5 for 37, right? The rest of the Niners went 22 for 71 with a long of 8 yards rushing.
Yeah.
And then the Niners didn't have a play longer than 19 yards from the line of scrimmage, which, with Bryant and Love, you have your deep safeties, right? You have your say. We talked about this when, I knocked Okada, but the reality is when you have your two safeties that can play like that, you're in a place where you can keep everything in front of you on top of having an incredible tackling team. So,
Right.
yeah, this was the best performance I've seen from this defense, I think, this season. And I don't know that Chicago, or if the Seahawks, I think Chicago's beating the Rams. I think it's too cold for LA, to be honest with you,
I
in
hope so.
Chicago. But Chicago, Houston and whomever, Patriots, whomever would have a chance, especially I think New England with Drake May, because Drake May is a star. If I had to bet though, right now, this is with Sam Darnold at quarterback. If I had to bet, I would take the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl over any other team because this defense is so dominant.
Yeah. It was a statement win. It
Yes.
was a we're coming out party. We are here. Because for as much as we're going to rave about this defense, and we should rave about this defense, all the other components of this team were just as on it and just as on target. But I do actually want to talk about this defense just a little
Mhm.
bit more
Mhm.
because we're kind of getting to the point where there's a little bit of a Mike McDonald owning of Kyle Shanahan. I think we're kind of in that phase now because
Mhm.
it took a lot of flukes for one for the 49ers to even win that game
Yeah.
in week one. It was a
Yep.
lot of fluke plays, early mistakes. Seahawks lost even Mori, which is like we just said, their chess piece. They basically had to tear up their game plan. And, I think you definitely saw the 49ers be able to take advantage of that.
Right.
But with a healthy defense, and I understand that they've had some injuries on offense, but they haven't stood a chance. Like
Nope.
there's just no. It's not like this chess match. So we watch when we see the Rams and the Seahawks play, right? There's this chess match of like Sean McVay, Mike McDonald, and you can see the defense offense go back and forth, and there's this kind of gamesmanship happening. It's
Right.
not a competition. Like Kyle Shanahan has yet to provide anything close to a threat to a Mike McDonald defense. And even when they
Mhm.
won the last game, it's not like they just ran up the score. And
Right.
it was a low scoring game. So
Right.
I, it's early still, but I'm kind of getting confident that the Seahawks might not that Mike McDonald might now own Kyle Shanahan.
I'm gonna pump the brakes a little because that's my job.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So if I'm looking at, I just brought up the Niners injuries, and we've got, so Fred Warner, I think, is the biggest one. I think Fred Warner is the best inside linebacker in football. You had Warner hurt, you had Kittle hurt, you have Ayuk, who's probably not going to be a Niner anymore, but when he was playing and healthy, played like a true number one receiver. Michael Williams, their big first round pick out of Georgia, on IR. Nick Bosa, as we know. So when you go down that list and you think about those stars, right? Do you think that these two, what do you think of the matchup of these two teams? And I'm thinking more for next year. But do you still think that the Seahawks are better? Do you still think that Mike McDonald has that advantage?
I do because particularly I'm talking about Kyle Shanahan versus Mike McDonald, which
Sure.
means you only name one offensive player
Yep.
that's coming back sometime next year,
Right.
right? And he's aging.
And he's old. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
He's great, but he's aging. And we'll see what he
Mhm.
looks like after this injury. Hopefully
Mhm.
it's somewhat close to his normal form. But I don't see it because that doesn't help you get what they need, 30 more points.
Right. I
I mean,
think the game
I
is,
mean that
yeah, the
doesn't
game
help this
might be,
offense.
it might be 21-13 instead
Right.
of 41-6, but that's still, the Seahawks are still, I think, overall a better team.
Right.
I just, you see those big names and it makes me think, okay, like, Warner, I think, is a game changer, right? And obviously
Sure.
Bosa's great, as much as I don't like him. And Michael Williams is big and athletic. We don't know exactly what he is as a lineman. But you're right. They weren't on the offensive side of the ball. I think you've got McCaffrey 1 year older.
Hmm.
B, you've got Trent Williams, who is a Hall of Fame, probably first ballot Hall of Fame left tackle, but is also really aging. He's old now.
Right.
You've got a line that's young, that has some young pieces, but is not necessarily great. And then Pearsall is literally your only, well, Pearsall and Jennings, but Jennings is like a jumbo wide receiver or a small tight end. You've
Yeah.
got, really one wide receiver who's worth much.
Who
And
can
so,
stay healthy, by the way.
mm-mm, mm-mm. So I agree, but I think it's closer than Seahawks fans want to admit. The other thing I'll say is
Sure.
if you can get, if Purdy can't just stand back there and pick you apart, because Purdy is in my opinion, an average quarterback. I think he has the ability to evaluate defenses. I think he's got nice touch, right? He doesn't have a great arm, but he's a good passer. But there's nothing that he does. He's a caretaker in a lot of ways, right? There's not a lot of things that he does to me that make him stand out. And I think if the Seahawks can continue to pressure him the way that they did in this game, he's the kind of guy he's not Josh Allen, right? He's not going to shed tacklers. He's not going to make something out of nothing. I think that the Seahawks will be a better team than the Niners moving forward. It's interesting too because the Rams are great, but they've got a quarterback who how much longer can Stafford play?
Yeah.
And without a great quarterback, I don't know what they're going to be able to do either. So it's all looking up. Honestly, it's all looking up.
I will push back on the Brock Purdy comment because I think what he does best is improvisation. And in fact, it's the only way they got any yards. I mean, it took a crazy throw across. I mean, like run
Yes,
across the
across
field,
the field.
throw across his body to Jake Tunges to even get a first down. I mean, he had to make some crazy plays, and that happened in the previous game too.
Right,
Anything that good happened was Brock Purdy breaking the pocket, doing some improvisation,
right,
trying to make something happen for his team. Now he throws some picks because of that, but I think that's something I do think makes him stand out, and it's something that the Seahawks do tend to have a trouble. They've done better as of late. They do
right.
sometimes tend to have trouble accounting for that, which is
He
fine.
can do
You know?
well. I can say he can do that, but they're not winning if that's what he has to do. Is my point.
Right,
If he's scrambling for his life, they're not beating the current iteration of the Seahawks. They're just
correct,
not, right? They're going to
correct.
have to be able to run the ball better. If it's me, I'm running the ball outside, and I know the Seahawks' pursuit is great, but they couldn't get anything up the middle. You're running the ball outside with McCaffrey. You're trying to get the ball to McCaffrey, in the passing game. If they had Kittle back, I think Kittle would have been more of a threat over the middle because they couldn't get anything outside. So
True.
it's to me, I agree. I think Purdy is good in improvisation. I think he's good at avoiding, his footwork in the pocket, that sort of thing when they get him on the rollout. But you can't run for your life and expect to win.
Right.
That's not a winning formula in the NFL unless it's, Lamar or someone like that scrambling.
Yeah.
So I think the Seahawks you're right. They have their number for right now.
Hmm.
Um, Granted that, or given that they bring back most of who they have this year,
Right.
and that, if the Niners shore up that offensive line, I think it's a different story as well. Because if they can run the ball a little bit better, I think that opens up a lot of stuff. But that's also just my philosophy about offense in general.
I think they tried. I don't think they can. I think now I will say what makes this defense historical is its run defense.
Hmm.
Um, I believe I'll credit Hop Blocker. I listen to him quite a bit because he's got some great stats. But one stat that he is rattled off is that the difference between like Seahawks are number one in run defense, obviously, but the
Hmm.
difference between one and two is the greatest gap that there's been since 1995.
That's crazy.
Like there's been no team like it's historically good at the run,
Hmm.
and they're doing it out of light boxes,
Right.
right? And so that makes it even crazier. So I don't think it was a them thing. I just think Mike McDonald's whole system was built to beat
Right.
Kyle Shanahan. His
Right.
entire philosophy, kind of like they brought Sean McVay in here to kill Pete Carroll's
Yep.
philosophy and rip it to shreds. I think that's what Mike McDonald's done to Shanahan, and Sean McVay is he's so adaptable, and so like
Innovative.
he's changed so much. Yeah, he's changed so much from even what he was like 4 or 5 years ago as a coach that
Yep.
it's a constant evolution for those two, and it's much more equal. And we'll see. Obviously, It's just 2 years into Mike McDonald's tenure, and the first year was a little shaky in terms of those matchups, not exactly dominating, but it's something I'm watching for. And right now, that's my opinion until the 49ers, frankly, prove me otherwise.
Hmm.
We'll see if they can. We'll see what kind of offseason they have. Theirs begins now.
Right.
uh,
Thankfully, one
yeah.
so one thing too with this defense that I think is worth touching on is the edges are, at the line are really stout, right? And Wosu and Lawrence are, yes, they're DNs or edges, whatever you want to call them, but they can set an edge, right? Mafe, when he's in there, can set an edge.
Right.
And I think in a different way, we don't have those, really skinny, lithe, like 6'5", 240-pound Leonard Little type edges that can get up field really quickly, but can get pushed around a little bit against the run. Like he wants to be stout. I think the way that this team was built allows for this team to defend against the run in that way. I
Hmm.
really do.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I think it's worth mentioning though that again, you have what is might be the best run defending inside linebacker in football in Ernest Jones, top three for sure,
Hmm.
second team All Pro. You
Hmm.
got an edges in Lawrence and Mafe and Wosu that can really set an edge against the run. Obviously, you have to be stout in the middle too, but I think that it's John Schneider listening to what Coach McDonald wants
Hmm.
for this defense. It's teaching them and coaching them to be able to set the edge in the way that they do. It's pursuing to the ball. It's the ability to tackle, right? Everything fell into place. Lawrence fell into our laps. Ernest Jones, we got Ernest Jones for a 4,
It's crazy.
which is wild, right? Because he's
Crazy.
such a huge key to this defense. It's just every move they've made with this defense darn near has been perfect.
Hmm.
Selecting Byron Murphy, we were excited about the move, but it's, to see him actually reach the place we wanted him to get to in year two. Getting Jaron Reed back after leaving for a year
Hmm.
was huge. It's just they were really smart. They giving Leonard Williams a big contract,
Yes.
when his expired, being willing to pick him up for what was it, a two?
Yeah.
He wasn't cheap.
It's pretty.
Just
Yeah.
all of those things are just brilliant, and I think we're seeing that come to fruition. In this last game, we saw it kind of at its peak. It's
I agree.
it's cool. It's cool.
I gotta give John Steiner a ton of credit for his ability to rebuild this roster, and it's not just who he retained; it's who he didn't retain.
Right.
It's letting go of when you're just talking about those skinny edges that can't set the edge. Daryl Taylor
Yep.
comes to mind. It's
Yep.
walking away from a Daryl Taylor. It's walking away from a guy like Mike Jackson, who is
Hmm.
very talented and doing very
Thriving.
well with the
Hmm.
Panthers, but not exactly the fit that Mike McDonald needs. It's being willing to walk away from even your players that are doing well and say you're great, but you're not what we need, right?
Right.
And I think it's that mindset that what Mike calls it chasing edges,
Right.
right? That mindset that's really gotten the personnel to a T to be exactly what Mike McDonald needs in order to enforce it. And what I find interesting is that for all the credit that Mike McDonald gets about being this defensive mastermind, at least against the 49ers, he isn't. They are so simple. What they ran yesterday wasn't a bunch of crazy stunts and disguises. They just lined up and whoop tail. Like
Yeah.
they just lined up and pushed dudes around. They did what they felt like they did well.
Hmm.
They implemented it, they executed it, and it was almost like what you said. I feel like that's what almost made it feel Legion of Boom like. Is like there wasn't a bunch of complexity last night.
Mm-mm.
They just beat you. Like
Well,
they were
and
just
one of the things that I love about what this defense is doing is, there are defenses that are complex, right? And sometimes you get players that are too busy thinking
hmm
and aren't able to react and play to their athleticism or play to their twitch, right? It's more about, okay, where do I need to go now? What's going on? And they're a half second late. And so you're not taking advantage of the fact that you have elite athletes.
right.
And I think with this Seahawks defense, by simplifying it a little bit, as you said, you allow the players to shine,
Hmm.
right? A Reek Woolen, who's playing at a Pro Bowl level right now,
Yes.
is it's not complicated, and so he's able to demonstrate his athleticism. I think that's a great point. And I think it's a really, really big deal for this defense. The other thing that I admire is, the Seahawks 2 years ago picked Tyrese Knight in the fourth round, and he's had some flashes of brilliance,
Mhm.
and he's been really good. And I think he's an asset, and I think he's a starting linebacker in the NFL. And
Yes.
a lot of teams, because he was a draft pick, because there was expectation, would continue to run him out there, and I think he would be good. But Drake Thomas is playing really well in this defense and making some big plays, right? The play he made on fourth down with Juszczyk was huge, right?
Huge. Yes.
And that to me is an organization that isn't so caught up in the fact that they picked him in the fourth round, that he was the heir apparent, right? He was the reason why they traded the other, stiffs that
Hmm.
were playing that position, and say, you know what, Drake Thomas stepped in when Knight was hurt for a little bit and has played incredibly well. And so we're going to continue to play him despite the fact that he has a little less pedigree than the other guy, because he's the one who's earned it. That's what, good teams do, I think, is there's no ego in this, right? I'm sure there
Yes.
is some, but there's not to the point where it's going to impact your decision making.
Right.
And that's it. To me, I admire that. I think that's huge that a player like that can step in and have that role, um, despite the fact that there's a younger player kind of waiting in the wings that was supposed to be the heir apparent.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Um, so I know we spent a ton of time talking about this defense. They
Yes.
certainly are worthy. But do got to talk about this offense because that's what's caught people off guard.
Hmm.
That's what has been surprise. And it's been something I've been noting to toot my own horn, really going back since week 9 or 10,
Hmm.
in that I understand the pass game is not doing as well. I understand that we're not seeing the explosives we used to see, but I'm also seeing every week this run game get better and better. And
Hmm.
that's exactly what it's done. And it's peaked at the absolutely right time. I didn't care that halfway through the season that they hadn't mastered the run game because in my mind I'm going, there's still much football left.
Hmm.
This is the time to have your best running games.
Hmm.
This is the time because also you don't have a ton of film on tape. I think that almost puts them at an advantage because like teams haven't been able to figure out what you did differently,
Right.
right, in order to make the run game work. And I will say, quiet is kept. This is not news. It's my suspicion. I think the Kenny Palomalu like move. I think that was Mike McDonald just saying it's not working,
Right.
and Clint saying I've got guys that I'm used to working with that I know can get more out of
Hmm.
this run game, and I think they parted ways mutually. Much respect to him, but in this system, he needed someone like a Justin Alton, I believe is his name. It's the guy that is now hauling and work, in charge of the run game. At this point, it's been elevated, and ever since they made that adjustment, we went from seeing slow progress to almost, I mean, immediate results
Hmm.
in terms of seeing games with over 100 yards rushing consistently, right? And well, we really didn't see it at all before that. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, you saw games maybe come close, but not really
Right.
quite. I think maybe week 2 against the Steelers, but nothing else really comes to mind. But
Hmm.
you saw this team consistently get better. You saw the running backs have better vision because it was something that both of them struggled with. Honestly, Zach Charbonnet and K9 at times
Right.
would miss a hole or hesitate too long or you know not have enough patience. You're seeing K9 with the patience to run behind his blockers and to hit his cuts with confidence and really embrace this system in a way that I've
Hmm.
really never seen him embrace any system, frankly. And now he's playing the best ball of his career. Like I don't think we haven't. This is better than rookie year K9 to me.
I agree.
What he's done.
I I don't like picking, or I don't like signing running backs to a second contract, and it would surprise me if the Seahawks did re-sign K9. Um, but I think it's worth asking the question. I think before middle of this season, I'm like, let him go. Right, we're gonna be okay. Are you gonna be able to replace him completely? Maybe not, but let him go. We can find someone else. Use a 2 or a 3 on a running back. Bring somebody in. He might not be the best fit for this scheme after this. you may want to, especially if you can get him on only a couple of years
Hmm.
at maybe a slightly higher AAV,
Hmm.
right? Slightly higher salary. He's dynamic. And I think he's looked even more dynamic in this last game than I've seen him, as you said, since his rookie year. I also I think you're right. There is a slight difference in I think the way that they're attacking the running
Yep.
backs.
Yep.
And if we I don't know that I assume it's coaching because it's coincided with the coaching move,
Hmm.
but it is different, right? You see, K9 is much more decisive now in
Yes.
terms of he's not lollygagging in the backfield the way that he did previously. I don't think Charbonnet really did that all that much because he's a little bit more of a battering ram,
He
but
did
Walker
sometimes.
looks better because of it.
Hmm.
And the other thing is, again, this line is you don't obviously have a running game without a line,
Right.
and this line is playing so well right now. And I don't know. Again, I don't know well enough whether it's coaching, it's guys, getting better, it's players like Zabel getting more experience. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but whatever it is, they're doing it right. They're doing it right. And this was the only, as I said, this is the only way they were going to make a Super Bowl run is to get this running game in order and for it to be a plus running game, not just an average one, not just one to set up the play action, but one that can impose its will on the other team. And I think that's where we're at. Is this team, we'll see against, we play the Rams again. We'll see against the Rams because the Rams have a very good defense. We'll see if it's, Denver or the Texans in the Super Bowl. We'll see. But I have confidence in this running game now. And we could not say that the first half of the season. We
No,
absolutely could not say that.
not
You're
at
right.
all.
It has progressed.
And it's been cool to see, because it has been in part, not just the online. I love the synergy you're seeing between Jalen Sundell and Grace Abel. I think that
Mhm,
showed in this past game. I can't remember what run that was. K9 busted a big one, I think, and you just see Grace Abel, Jalen Sundell like out in front, like
mhm,
super far downfield, like just blocking, because they've got that athleticism,
mhm,
that really can help unlock it. In this new coaching change seems to be able to have really gotten the best out of Jalen Sundell, because we saw some limitations with him in the
mhm.
run game to start the season, quite frankly. But they figured out how to use his athleticism to their advantage. They're actually running the wide zone, which did not work at first, and now it is. Um,
You got
and
to get him out front, right? You got to get him pulling, or you got to get him to the second level because if he's
Mhm.
just in the trenches against a 330-pound nose tackle, he's going to get used, right?
Right,
He just is because he's not that guy. If you're not utilizing, his strengths, then bring in someone who's more stout. In on Shahid's long run, you had Sundell, Zabel, and Cross that were out there, way out in front, right,
yeah,
making blocks
that's what I'm thinking of.
downfield.
Yeah,
And that run was, to see linemen that far downfield is cool. That's a that's and that's different, right? We've seen that a little bit, but that's different to see that kind of athleticism. And like Laumea, when we were talking about Laumea and the other guy, last year in that run against Atlanta that we bring up sometimes, and they were way downfield. They had athleticism, but they had no technique, right? They
yeah,
had no skill. It was just a big body that was a good athlete that they were trying to
mhm,
mold into something. I think now with Sundell, with Zabel, with Cross, with Lucas too, you have linemen that have that same athleticism, but are technicians that have the ability to, for the most part, right? Like Zabel, Cross, Lucas, I think, Sundell, I think, is working towards it, but they have skill. It's not
yeah,
just athleticism, it's athleticism and skill. And that's when you start to see your line play well. The other thing is they're just getting better over time because they're playing together.
yeah.
And there's
Cohesive.
synergy on that line, right? And that's how the great lines become great lines is they play together for a long time. You know what your partner's going to do. You know their every step, right? You're always in sync. Lines are supposed to be that way. That's why they go out to dinner together. That's why they spend time together so they can become one. And we're seeing that happen with them as well.
Yep. No, I agree. I would actually say I think yes, some technique. Part of that's coaching, though. There was a huge
Yes.
coaching difference between last year and this one.
Yes.
But also I would add they just have a little bit more functional play strength to me than Laumea did. Laumea was strong, but not in pass pro.
He was just well, and he
Not
was
in
just
pass
young,
pro.
and but he was also just young. And by
Yeah,
young, I mean like you got to have you can be young with grown man strength, right?
yeah,
Zabel has grown man strength. Zabel
right.
isn't getting thrown around,
Hmm.
or I guess the better thing is more off balance, right? He's
Yeah, good
going to
anchor.
be he can anchor. And that's when I say that he's more technically sound.
Yeah.
Is he understands how to anchor and how to use his size
Hmm.
to not get pushed over or to not get off balance, where someone like Laumea doesn't have the technique to be able to stay on balance and to be able to not get pushed over. And so that's the difference to me is they have some of that technique that allows them to for their athleticism to shine.
Hmm.
And we didn't always see that with those. We were hoping with those other guys, which is different than knowing, right?
Right. You're right. Yeah, being able to attack. I think they definitely attack leverage way better
Hmm.
than we saw, frankly, anybody do
Right.
last year.
Right.
So yeah, that's a big deal. So real shout out to the guys, and even Anthony Bradford, who we've given a lot of. I
It's
know
your
I
boy.
personally have given a lot of flack to over the years.
Right.
I won't give him full credit until he proves he can win a Super Bowl. But I am saying I see you, Bradford. I see you. That's about all you're gonna get from me for now. Just because I'm scared that I'll jinx it or something. But
It's
I
funny.
watch him have a like terrible play.
It, he still
um,
makes me nervous too. He still
yeah,
makes me nervous for
definitely.
sure.
But we have not talked about the elephant in the room. I know you have not been a big proponent of Sam Darnold. One of the most encouraging things to me about this run game was then I began to see a clear path to the Super Bowl. Once I began to see that pick up, and I felt like the formula was changing to a Legion of Boom type play style.
Mhm.
Defense, run the ball, make a throw, make a play when you need to make a play, but most importantly, above all, protect the football
Yep.
and we'll ball. I mean, he only had to throw the ball 17 times today. And I
Yep.
will say, shout out to him for being, gutting it out. He's played through a few injuries this year. It's not this first injury that he's played through. And your oblique can affect your torque on the ball, your power, that's your
Yep.
core.
Yep.
So I don't think that's any small thing for him to fight through. And am I a little nervous about him playing the Rams, knowing especially that he is injured? Yes. But if they can run the ball like they did, anything close to like they did um last night, then they might be okay again. But it would take that. I think that the run game would have to be consistent to take the pressure off of Darnold because um, I, I I think he can do it. I think he is capable, but I think giving letting him sort of ride the back seat on
Mhm.
this run is probably the best thing. One thing I have learned and have begun to appreciate about Darnold is that he does tend to learn from his mistakes. You do see him get better in certain areas with this coaching staff, at least. You see the progress, right? There are some things that he used to do that he doesn't do anymore. He
Or
used to never run.
hasn't done in a minute, I think
Yeah.
is so let me ask you this. I guarantee you, whether it's the Rams or the Bears in the NFC championship, they are going to, and this is what I would do, and this is what I believe at least the Rams, maybe the Bears will do, is you blitz, you send 6, 7 guys at Darnold, you you blitz the heck out of them, and you double team JSN, and then you single cover everybody else, right? You single cover Rashid or Shaheed, you single cover Barner, right? You have a safety or something cover K9, or you play some kind of softer zone. But if it's me, I'm trying to put the entire game on the arm of Sam Darnold, and I'm going to say, "Go beat me." Because I know, as the Rams or the Bears, I know that if I play, 7-man front, and I've got four, there are 4 guys on the line, 3 guys at linebacker, or 5-2, whatever you're doing, they're going to run the ball against me. And if I don't bring a safety down, they're going to run the ball against my team, and we're going to lose because that defense is elite, right? Is generational. We just saw that in the Niners game. So if it's me and I'm the Bears or I'm the Rams, I'm saying I'm blitzing. I'm sending everybody at Darnold all the time because I believe you will make a mistake before you beat me, right? You will throw a pick before you can throw a touchdown, especially if you're giving the side with JSN help because JSN is the one weapon on that in that passing game that can single-handedly beat the other team. I don't believe the others can. I love Shaheed, right? I love Shaheed. And if you can get the ball to him in space, against the defense that's blitzing, that's great. But I believe Sam Darnold makes a mistake before they score a touchdown in that situation. And I think and I'm not saying he's not going to be able to do it, but I would bet on that's what I would do if I was the opposing team. And I think that's what he's going to have to perform against if the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl.
I think that's what he's been up against this whole time. I don't think teams have not attempted to stop the run. They have. Robert Saleh actually
I'm not saying
changed the strategy.
I'm not saying try to stop the run. I'm saying send everybody at Darnold, whether it's a run or a pass. I'm saying you just stack the box and you go after him, and
Yeah,
you
you just
say,
kill them
"I
with
don't think
screens.
you can beat me."
Then you just kill them with screens.
It's
That's
not that
fine.
easy.
But their screen game has actually improved quite a bit.
It
It's been
has,
noted.
but it's not that easy if the other team is playing press, right? If the other team is really challenging you and getting in your grill, that's not easy to do, right? I again, and even if it is screens, I still believe he's making a mistake before they score a touchdown. And that's I'm not trying to slam Darnold, right? The way I see Darnold now is different than the way I saw him a couple weeks ago because I haven't seen him make a mistake for 2 weeks. I'm just saying that's something he's going to have to prove himself against in these hopefully in these next two games. He's
I
going to
think
have to put the team on his shoulders at some point in time. He's going to have to.
I think he's been in those situations more than you might realize. That's
Not
what I
a,
think.
not I don't think
I
in
think
pressure game,
teams
not in pressure games though. Not in pressure games.
that's
He
exactly
he
what the
did
Rams did.
he and how well did
Rams
he
did.
play though?
He didn't play well, but we won. And he's played better each time.
I don't want to count on that being the case though. I don't want to count on my quarterback playing okay and everything else having to be perfect is what I'm saying. I
That's how the team is built.
I know, and I don't know that that's the right construction.
It worked for the LOB.
Different quarterback, different quarterback. Russell Wilson, different quarterback than Sam Darnold. I'm sorry.
Yeah, athletically,
Much
yeah.
much more talented passer, much more talented deep passer, much better quarterback in general, potential MVP candidate, right? Like
Well, he
different.
wasn't that his rookie year. He wasn't.
No, but he took care of the ball. And he also
Mm.
the other thing that he did that was amazing was he had even his rookie year, he had one of the best deep balls in the game. And that's part of the threat. That was part of the threat and why they could run the ball was he had such a great deep ball that you had to respect it, right? You had to have deep help from the safety because his deep ball was so great. I don't think that I'm just saying you might be right, and you've been right up to this point with Darnold. I will grant you that. But if he's going against huge pressure, and the other team is daring Sam Darnold to beat you, and your money is behind Sam Darnold, that makes me nervous, is what I'm saying. I just,
Yeah,
I don't know that, that's not a great situation to be in for me.
I think that's what. Now, of course, you have to have the personnel to execute that because I think that's nice in a premise. That's what the Panthers tried to do, but they
Sure.
weren't able to do it successfully. It's what the Colts tried to do, but they weren't able to. They were able to slow them down though, because the Colts game ended up getting in the mud
Right?
and they couldn't get a touchdown and all that. So that's what I mean. I think we've seen it though. I think
But
we've seen it.
but
Now,
that's
is
not,
this the biggest game? Absolutely, this is the biggest game, right? So like, of course, it's going to be that question. There's higher leverage moments, all of those things. Completely. I don't not understand your concerns. I do understand your concerns. I just think he's had quite a bit of practice in these situations. I think the team has had quite a bit of practice in these situations because how many big games did they have to win to get to this point, to get the number one seed, to beat their NFC West rivals, who, let's be clear, the NFC West, the three teams in the NFC West are the best teams in the conference, no question. And you've had to get over all those humps. And so I think they've had more big games than people like to give credit for in hindsight. Now it was a big game in the moment, and then once Seahawks winning, people are like, well, it wasn't as big as the next game. You know what I mean? Like I think there's been some goalpost moving in that respect because there
Mhm.
were the Seahawks could not lose a game all season. Like really, it was that close of a race with the NFC West. It was what the Rams losing to the Panthers.
Mhm.
that effectively cost. Why the Seahawks were able to get the number one seed, because they dropped, like, they weren't, every game was a big game because they could not lose.
Right.
So I do understand that obviously the NFC championship is the NFC championship. No regular season game is going to equal that magnitude. I just think teams have tried to do it. I think they've worked on the screen game because they anticipated this very fact. That's how you counter aggressive blitzes, and there are ways you can counter it. And Clint Kubiak has gotten better at mastering those. I think Sam Darnold has also learned to use his legs sometimes, or learn to throw it in the dirt sometimes, or learn to take a sack. So even on that play where he took that sack to what maybe 2 and 20, I think, right
Mhm.
before he threw that ball back to Cooper Kupp, and it ultimately
Yep.
ended up getting the first down.
Yep.
But my first reaction when I first saw that play
Why
was,
didn't you get
"Oh,
rid of the
why'd you
ball?
take the sack?"
Yeah.
And then I saw there was a defender right there with his arm up. He could not throw that ball away, or it
Yeah.
would have been a turnover, an interception. Those are the things I'm paying attention to that let me know he's learning, and lets me know he's processing it. And it might not look pretty because he's actively learning in real time. So like, he might not be able to take all of this information and still be able to look like Matt Stafford like he did at the beginning. I mean, he didn't look like Matt Stafford. Nobody looks like Matt Stafford. But you know what I mean? Like, he was still a top candidate, still looked like a top five quarterback through the first half of the season. It's
Mhm.
hard for him to learn those things on the fly while taking in all these lessons, but it's possible for him to do his job and to be good enough while the rest of the team, you know, takes care of business, right? Um, so ultimately, I say yes. This whole season is going to come down to staff. I mean, to Matt, to Sam Darnold. Can he take care of the ball? Can he play mistake free football? Can he make a play when he has to make a play? And there will be times that he'll need to make a play. But so far, I'm encouraged. Now, he might prove me wrong. He might falter. He might not be able to handle it moving forward. But we saw Sam Darnold in this exact same situation last year. He had a game with the number one seed, couldn't win it.
Yep.
Then he had a playoff game, had to go on the road because he couldn't win the first one, lost it. And we've seen him do the exact same situation a year later and do better. To me, that gives me enough encouragement that he can improve.
Well,
If he goes
did he do better, or did he just have a better team around him?
both, both.
Yes, I think it's easier to do better when you're asked to pass the ball 17 times, right?
Oh, for sure. Because
And I'm not
the
and
Bengals are
I'm not
bad.
trying to rip the dude anymore. I'm trying to be realistic about, what we're up against, right? My point in saying that they were going to face I think they're going to face a ton of blitz, and teams expecting him to beat them, or to play like 8 men, back and rush 3 and just wait, and for him to throw the ball to somebody else, sort of thing. What I'll also say is, the Texans defense specifically,
Mhm.
but the Patriots too, and certainly the Broncos, but the Broncos are different without Bo Nix. Those are defenses of a different caliber than the Colts, right? Those are defenses
Right.
of a different caliber than maybe even the Rams at this point in time.
Yeah,
And
I
certainly
agree.
the Niners without Bosa and Warner. And so that's why also I say, you look at, we talked about it in that Texans Monday night matchup. We talked about Will Anderson, right?
Mhm.
And how good those DN, Danielle Hunter, and how good those DNs are. And that is, again, that's something that he's going to have to perform against. And he fumbled in that game, and
Yeah,
he threw a pick in that game.
I
And
agree.
they were lucky, in my opinion, to get out, unscathed in that game. And so it's I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I'm past that, right? I think Darnold has proven they're in the NFC Championship, right? It's time to celebrate in many, many ways.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to anticipate his next step,
Right, right.
and just trying to be, understand what it is that he's going to face, and then hope that he can come through in those situations. Now, the positive in that is, we saw even Bobo and Cup step up in this last game,
Mhm.
for first downs in situations where if they can beat their guy and run, even if it's Bobo posting somebody up on a slant, that's huge. If K9 can be more involved in the passing game a little bit more, that's going to be huge, because you can all of a sudden you can dump it off to a running back if you're under pressure and pick up 10 yards, right? The other thing is we've seen JSN perform against double teams. And so
Mhm.
it's not as if you can completely take him away if Darnold has to pass the ball.
Mhm.
And if Darnold performs in those situations, I'll be the first one to celebrate. And I'll be, as a Seahawks fan, I'll be incredibly excited. I'm just wary, I think is the best word. I'm wary of what is going to happen in those situations. And I believe that in the next two games, he will see a lot more all out blitz, a lot more pressure, and he's going to have to process quickly and get the ball to the right guys really, really, really quickly in
Yeah,
those situations.
I do agree. I mean, obviously, people are going to try to put pressure on Darnold. I do have to think about. I mean, I guess the teams remaining, most of them do have the ability to do that in some capacity, but and I think you'll see that effect. I also, outside of the Texans defense, I'm not really afraid that we won't be able to run to balance that a little bit.
New England
Um,
can defend the run. New England stout.
New England ain't played nobody. New England ain't.
But they're stout. Vrabel, and that
But you,
Christian Barmore is an elite D tackle. They're stout at linebacker. I'm telling you, they're not. They are a physical team. New England's a physical team, and they've got a top five quarterback. That's scary. That in and of itself is scary to me.
yeah, I just know they ain't played nothing like this, anything close to what the
No,
Seahawks are.
the Seahawks are battle tested. Obviously, in the NFC West, anybody in the
Right,
NFC West is battle tested for sure.
right. Correct, correct. So I'm not saying I'm taking it for granted, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I think the Seahawks can overcome that. I guess is what I'm
Mhm.
saying from a Patriots perspective. Now the Texans, I do think pose a particularly unique challenge. I think the Texans defense, in fact, is probably the one of the best defenses to counter this offense.
Mhm.
I would dare say, their ability to pressure on the edge and also have good coverage guys who can, well, supposedly take away JSN. Though we did see JSN literally dunk on Darius Leonard Jr., but we probably know they've learned some lessons. They probably still feel a way about how that game went.
Right.
And so that would be interesting, the rematch. Because the Seahawks really should have. They felt like in ways they dominated, but in other ways they just couldn't put them away, and they
Right.
hadn't really learned. They hadn't learned how to do that at that point in the season. They've kind of learned how to do that now. What that looks like with both teams' adjustments will just be, I mean, fascinating to me.
Right.
But I think you're right. I think the rest of the way you're going to see teams try to force the hand of Darnold. Obviously, he didn't face any pass rush these past two games. The 49ers just don't have any. So I
Right.
don't want to discredit your argument. I think it's very legitimate. Um, and we've seen Darnold look frazzled, and we've seen him make mistakes in those instances. His mistake-free football has come from primarily pressureless football, right?
Mhm.
Can he take that experience now that he has done it, and now that he knows he can do it? Can he add to it and put back in those pressure packages even with the injury, and can he overcome it? I certainly think it's a question, but I feel a heck of a lot better about him doing it, knowing that they got that run game. And I think if let's say they play the Rams, I think they can run on the Rams. Rams defense has not been great as of
No,
late, so it's been pretty bad.
and something to consider: the Seahawks are healthy,
Right.
right? The Seahawks are healthy. The Seahawks had an extra week of rest, right? They looked explosive last night because of it. They're playing at home. I think all those things really do matter.
Right.
Where specifically the week of rest, right? Versus the Rams, who had to go through a playoff war, right? Who have to go through another one potentially
Mhm.
this week. Even the Bears, would have to go through that. And so to not have that week of rest and travel for the Chicago specifically 4 hours to Seattle,
Mhm.
right? To play in Seattle against a hostile crowd is that there's a difference there, right? How many points that's worth, I don't really know, but there
Right.
is something to be said for Charles Cross being able to take another, have a week, an extra week to get healthy. For Sam Darnold, I know the oblique came up late, but it's all of them. They're just it makes a huge difference in football to have that extra week.
And I'll say they still get an extra day of rest. So
Yes,
because the game was on Saturday,
yes,
yes, they have the extra week of rest. But on top of that, they will get today they're chilling, right?
yep,
That's one extra day
yep,
that whoever's playing today, they won't have that advantage. So the rest advantage is stacking up, in that regard, which is why the number one seed is so important.
Yep.
Um, and like you said, how much does that amount to? I think either way, we're going to see a much tougher battle.
Right.
Obviously,
Right.
like you're not going to kick everybody like you kicked the 49ers. I think the Seahawks are uniquely made and built to kind of do that to the 49ers. They won't be for any of these other teams.
Right.
So more pressure will be on Darnold. More you won't probably won't see the run game be nearly as explosive, but you should still see it be effective.
Yep.
We really need to see about Charbonnet. I believe that 1-2 punch matters.
Yep.
Hopefully he's able to go. That extra day of rest helps to his cause. They're not completely healthy. I think Charles Cross had a foot. They kind of held him out. They said
They said he's fine after the game. They said that he was fine, but yeah, I still think of concern. I think you're right too that Velus Jones was drafted as a wide receiver by the Bears
mhm,
and is now the backup running back for the Seahawks. And I think you saw, when I'm watching him, for me, you see the athleticism, but you don't see the instinct, right?
right,
You see, and he was best when he was running outside because of his speed, but you
right,
don't see the vision, you don't see the instinct, you see the explosiveness. I would rather have a Cam Akers back there who might not be as explosive, but has NFL running back experience as a number one and is a veteran, right?
right,
It's it makes me nervous though. If Charbonnet can't go, I'm definitely nervous about that because K9 is not a 22, 25 carry type of running back.
correct,
He's just not. He's too small. And he's
right,
less effective over time if he has to play that much.
mhm,
I think part of having Charbonnet available is a huge part of K9's success.
yes,
So that makes me a little bit nervous if Charbonnet is out. It doesn't mean that they won't win. It doesn't mean that K9 won't have a big game, but I do think Charbonnet makes K9 a lot better, a
yeah.
lot better.
They figured out how to work well together, and it took all season for them to
Hmm.
figure it out. But they have figured it out. I'm wondering if anybody like George Halani is able to come back anytime soon. They've mentioned I don't think they started his practice window though. It's the only thing I know. Elijah Warrior's been practicing. Chaz Surratt has been practicing. And I was surprised actually that they weren't activated for this game. The Seahawks do have two slots. I think four at total. I believe they had two slots before, and I didn't end up using them on Oreo nor Chaz Surratt. And then they get playoff slots as well, so they could
Hmm.
bring back if anybody's physically healthy, they
Right,
could bring back a George Halani. I'd feel a whole lot better with a George Halani if he were able to come back, if he can practice his week. It'd be a really big deal. Um, but it'll be interesting the rest of the way because you've got one playoff win under your belt. But from here, I think it gets real. I think it's almost like it's going to sound super arrogant to say that the playoffs started now, but with the way that game kind of ended up going, the
hmm,
playoffs did kind of start now. Like they, in terms of those close games, those high leverage moments. Um, I wasn't sure if we were going to get that from the 49ers or not. I think I saw it going two ways.
right,
Obviously, when we completely left in favor of Seattle, but whoever they play, I don't expect it to be even comfortable. I'm anticipating stress right now.
right,
So let's
right.
just enjoy this day, guys. Enjoy this
Yes,
football because it's gonna get, boy, it's gonna, yeah, we
it's
gonna,
gonna get tight. It's gonna
yeah, it's
get
gonna get
tense.
real tight.
Yes.
Yes, the rest of the way.
Yep. For sure.
All right, I think that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to touch on. I know the games are actively going on right now, so
Hmm.
um, we'll see. The game that matters the most is not started. I think right now. Was it the Texans and Patriots?
It
What's that
is.
score?
Uh-huh.
I'm curious as to who would you rather play, the Patriots or the Texans? And wait, sorry, like in the Super Bowl.
I think I'd rather play the Texans because I'd be afraid of the best quarterback more than anything.
Interesting.
And
I
I
never heard of
think it's 10-7 Texans with 10 minutes in the second.
it. Okay. All
I
right, that's
would
interesting.
yes, I would rather play the Texans. I think the Texans are a little bit better on defense, but I think Drake May has the ability to put the team on his shoulders and win the game. And he's that good of a quarterback. And whereas Stroud, I think his can make does make mistakes and will make mistakes. I don't see him as elite. It's not because he went to Ohio State. It's because I don't think that he's on that level.
Yeah,
Um,
he's kind of regressed quite a bit.
and I also think that I think both teams are well coached, but the Patriots are on a roll, and I think that Drake May again is it's like when you play in the playoffs again in any sport, it's that superstar talent tends to raise, kind of the cream rises to the top,
Right.
and Drake May's that guy, right? To be a second year quarterback and be a top five MVP candidate is says who he is, especially without a ton of weapons,
Right.
around him, and a rookie
Right.
left tackle. So
That's fair.
I would rather see the Texans, but honestly, I'd rather see the Broncos just because Bo Nix is out more than any of them.
My household will be divided. My husband's a Broncos fan, so I don't think that's good for anyone, either of us.
No, that's
Um,
that's
that
Broncos.
would be, in my opinion, the easiest path, though, if we did face the Broncos. I just then would have to deal with a very sad husband. So I don't know. I think I'd rather beat somebody else
Or you can
than
see it
come
as a
at a personal
win-win.
cost to
You
me.
can see it as a win-win. The household will be happy if it's Broncos Seahawks because one of you will get a Super Bowl.
It won't be happy, I assure you. No, it's too competitive for that.
That's funny.
All right, Tino, tell the folks where they can find you, what we got going on. We'll get out of here.
Yes, Tino Junior 20 on Blue Sky. You can find me there. Not a ton other than a bunch of baseball research and getting ready for.
All right. Be sure to follow the show at Seahawks 360 Pod on X. You also follow us at Seahawks 360 on Blue Sky. In the meantime, that's it. That's all the time we have for today. That's it. We're out. And as always,
Go
go Hawks.
Hawks.